We are literally dying without joy at work. Not figuratively, literally. Every year in the US, there are 120,000 deaths linked to intense workplace stress. That is more people than diabetes or influenza. And here's the good news. The antidote isn't more hustle, it's not more grit, it's not a better planner or, the latest hack that you found. The antidote is joy. And I learned that the hard way. I've been on both sides of leadership, leading in a culture where joy was at the center, and then slogging through in a culture where joy had been completely drained away. One earned us some national recognition, and the other broke me. And I'll tell you that story in just a minute. If you are new here, welcome to the Joyosity podcast. I'm glad you found your way to this corner of leadership and life where joy is at the center. I'm Jenn Whitmer, international speaker, leadership consultant, and all-around joy bringer. And we are jumping into the third season of the podcast. So if you are not new here, welcome back. So this fall, we're kicking off a brand new series inspired by my upcoming book, Joyosity: How to Cultivate Intense Happiness in Work and Life, even if things are what they are. And around here, we are not settling for toxic. We are not settling for overwhelmed leaders or the exhaustion of it's just too much. In each episode, I'm going to bring you stories and research and tools that you can use right away to create a thriving workplace. And we're going to start with yourself. So when I first became an official leader, like had the title of director, I helped lead a school that eventually we worked at, and I led the project that awarded us the U.S. Department of Education's Blue Ribbon School, which is the highest honor for schools in the country, and it's only awarded to 50 private schools a year. And we got there by centering joy. We discovered how to make testing a little bit more playful, light, and connected. And our results obviously spoke for themselves. But a few years later, the joy had disappeared. We had anxiety replaced all the connection. Gossip and confusion replaced any kind of clarity we had about what we were doing. And shame became the motivator from our leader. And joy didn't just walk out the door. It took with it productivity, trust, and even health. And I ended up exhausted. I had a knee injury that wouldn't go away. I had trouble even thinking about focusing on reading to my kids at night. There was gaslighting everywhere. And I contributed, but I thought I was the problem until I realized I wasn't alone. The problem was so much bigger. Most leaders, and I'm imagining if you're identifying with this story, you are thinking, I just got to push through, and that you're not alone. Most leaders aren't struggling because they lack the want to. They're not struggling because they actually lack ability or skills. They're unraveling because joy isn't at the center. And you've probably thought to yourself or been told with an out loud voice somewhere, you just need to work harder. You just need to push through. We just need to be resilient. We need to persevere despite adversity. And the truth is those are good things to say. And there are times when joy leads us that direction. But without joy, working harder is like trying to row a boat on the shore. You're just grinding the wood against the dirt, and you're exhausted and dirty and overwhelmed, and you're not going anywhere. All of this workplace stress, because we don't have joy in the center, is intense and I think, frankly, unacceptable. Besides the 120,000 deaths a year, Zippia reported that the costs of those people are $190 billion in healthcare. 72% of leaders say that they're exhausted from confused expectations and lack of clarity about what the purpose is. Gallup reports that workplace engagement has hit an 11-year low. And employees who aren't experiencing all of that, the ones who have put joy in the center, are 143% more productive. And the individual employee who has joy in the center improve the entire team performance by 25%. So if you are like, joy's fluffy, joy's extra, the data tells us otherwise. And you feel it. You know the difference too. So I just want to pause quickly because if you're intrigued by this data and what you're hearing, my new book, Joyosity, How to Cultivate Intense Happiness in Work and Life, even if things are what they are, that second subtitle is the one that gets me every time. I'd love for you to be a part of the Joyosity Very Important Party. It's a group of people that I'm sharing behind the scenes versus early access before the book comes out in late November, some fun extras that I'm not putting out anywhere else. And you can find the link in the show notes, or you can go to jennwhitmer.com/books and you can pre-order the book there as well. And you can join the group. And I would love for you to be a part of that because what we're discussing on the podcast is scraping the very top of the surface of what I dig into in the book. So, with all of the pain that I was talking about, I share more of this story in the book as well. But with all of that pain, sitting with an unexplained knee injury, unable to read, wondering, am I even capable of being a leader? I know that the data shows that pain is more common, but we have joy as a better option. And sometimes when I talk about joy, the next question that you may have is, okay, am I just supposed to be happy all the time every day? And my response is absolutely not. Of course not. That's completely unhinged, stable at best. And at worst, it's toxic positivity that isn't actually joy. So this is where joyosity comes in. This is where joy, how we really think about joy and cultivate joy, this is how we change that. So joy isn't balloons and rainbows and cotton candy. Those things burn away when the sun, heat of life come. They pop when things get hard. Joy is different. Joy has dirt on its face and fire in its eyes because joy is more rooted than that. So instead of thinking about joy like balloons that pop or cotton candy that melts on your tongue, I want to replace that image with lavender, something that is deeply rooted, that is resilient when the drought and the sun and the just the difficulties of life come. And it flourishes in soil that's a little bit rocky, that anticipates the difficulties and the stones, rocks, boulders of life. And that image often lets us go, well, then how do I create that? How do I rooted joy? Because real joy has deep roots, and roots form in the dark. And the first place you have to start digging, my little metaphorical shovel for you, is to start digging inside yourself and understand the joy ratio. Because you can actually measure the ratio that you need to experience that of lavender joy, that type of rooted joy that keeps you together, that keeps you resilient. And so I call it the joy ratio. It is 35, 10, 55, 35, 10, 55. So the first part is the 35% joy. And that's like the magic third. I know it's just over a third, but that 35% magic third is you spending time where things feel like joy. Things are grounded in purpose. You're like, I can't believe I get to do this. You just feel so fortunate that this is part of your world and you feel connected and like you have belonging when you do that work. That's what you want in the magic third. Then you've got toil's tiny 10. The reason I keep saying toil's tiny 10 is because we aren't very good at keeping toil into 10. So when we talk about joy, sometimes people think the opposite of joy is work or the opposite of joy is sadness. The opposite of joy is toil. And toil is the things that we don't feel like they have any purpose. You're like, rather than feeling lucky that you have to do it, you're like, why the hell do I have to do this? This has no meaning whatsoever. Or it's incredibly boring. It drains you. Or you're like, I just don't even know how to do this. Those types of things are toil's tiny 10. You want to spend this 35% of your days and your time over time, not necessarily every day, but 35% of your time in doing that work that is joy, and only 10% of your time in the toil. If you can keep that work that is incredibly draining to you, you have to know that it's draining for you. Incredibly draining for you and difficult, you feel unskilled, you don't have the resources to do it, keep that into 10% of your time. That will help you in the joy ratio. But if you're doing math, you're like, wait a second, that does not add up to 100. how do we get to the rest? Well, the 55% is the messy middle. And the messy middle is where I spend a lot of the book, really digging into how do you keep the messy middle in this moderate range and keep joy in the 35%. So even what's in the messy middle can start to become joy rather than becoming toil. Because if you don't manage that middle part, often it morphs or evolves into toil, things that are draining, exhausting, feel purposeless. All of that work, all the hard part of leading. The things that you love, they may be challenging, but the challenge is something that you love. The messy middle are the things that about making decisions, about engaging people in clear communication, how you build an experience and habits that support you. All of that's in the messy middle. So joy isn't about eliminating the hard things. It's about making sure that what actually brings you joy has the right amount of your time in the joyosity, in that joy ratio. And so that makes the middle meaningful and the toil doesn't take over. That's how you keep yourself in this very specific range of joy that is rooted. And that's where you got to dig into yourself. And to do that, you've got to know, well, what are the things that bring you joy and what are the things that bring you toil? I always joke that I have my mom's worst nightmare of a job. My favorite thing in the world, on a keynote stage with a microphone, hundreds and thousands of people learning all together, is like, would be absolute toil to my mother. My mom is a retired Navy nurse. She's so good at details and procedures, and that would send me over the edge if I had to spend my days like that. Not because I don't like helping people, but all of that particular math, and if I do it wrong, somebody could really be injured. That feels like toil to me. Now, you may be listening, you're like, I am the head nurse of my floor. I love that. Great. That's what you have to know. And so I've got a resource for you. It's called the Joyosity Explorer Map. You can get that at jennwhitmer.com/Joyosity Explorer. And I don't have a banner for that. So sorry. You can always just email me to find it. But you can really figure out, well, what are the things that bring me joy? It takes you through exercises to help you figure that out. And then what's a good next step for you to start building that into your life. And if you do that work, you will start to find more joy and possibly even more than 35% of your time living in that space of joy. Don't forget my new book, Joyosity, How to Cultivate Intense Happiness in Work and Life, is coming this fall. If you want early access, all that behind the scenes stuff, you can join the very, very important group. And that's at jennwhitmer.com/books. And again, all these links will be in the show notes. I'm so glad that you were with us today. And if you join us next week, we are diving into one of my favorite topics, which is self-awareness and the Enneagram. Now, if you're saying, Ennea, what? This is the perfect episode for you. If you're like, oh my gosh, I already even know my tri-type, you want to listen to, because here's how you connect that level of self-awareness in the Enneagram to actually creating joy. So I'll show you how those blind spots, old habits, even your quirks might be steering your leadership, and how you can really take them. So you don't want to miss it. And if I put my coach hat on for just a moment, I want you to take a breath. Ask yourself, what did you learn from listening to me for the last 15 minutes? Or maybe faster if you put me on 1.25 or even 1.5, that would be very fast. But what did you learn? What's your next tiny step? If you're like, I don't know, there's no wrong step. But if you're not sure, start with the Joyosity Explorer map, jennwhitmer.com/joyosity-explorer. And if you've got somebody around you that needs this, share it with them. Check the show notes for all those links. Connect with me. I love to play on LinkedIn and Instagram, or you can even drop me an email. It's Jenn with 2 N's at jennwhitmer.com. And I would love to hear your thoughts, your rebuttals, your confusion, your yes, please, more of this. I want to keep this conversation going. And I know your earballs have a lot coming at them. So thank you for choosing to spend some of your time with me and the Joyosity podcast. If you would rate and subscribe, it helps more leaders join us in this mission of restoring joy to work and creating leaders that cultivate positive culture with all of the complex people that you work with. So when you do that, work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. I can't wait to be with you next week, because it's going to be amazing.